Welcome to Siege Pleasure Brewers. I'm Tim.
And I'm Brandon.
How you doing tonight, Brandon?
I'm doing great, Tim. How are you?
Good. I'm about half asleep. It's been a long day. Work was busy.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to discuss how to do some upgrades to a Precon. All right, new Capenna just came out. I was strolling through Walmart real quick, and I just noticed the Maestros Massacre kind of sitting there, calling at me like a siren. And I snatched it. And I got it home, and I was like, this thing is a little rough. So I went ahead, and I took $40, and I threw some money at it. But before we go into what I changed about the deck, let's kind of talk about where the Precon is when you crack it open out of the box. All right?
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, which I'm sure everybody does, but we got to do it because if I don't, somebody will be like, I don't know what that card does. The face commander for the deck is Anhelo, the painter. It's a 1/3 with Death Touch for black, red, blue. And then has an ability of the first instant or sorcery you cast each turn has casualty 2. Now, what casualty does is you sacrifice a creature with X power or greater, and then allows you to copy an effect or an instant or sorcery. So in this case, you need to sack a creature with power 2 or greater, and then you get to copy the first instant or sorcery you play each turn. All right? That sounds pretty good. There's only one problem. The deck doesn't really have a lot of great ways to like leverage that. I mean, sure, it like comes with Squee, and it comes with some other creatures like Bloodsoaked Champion, but they're not very recursive, and that's very, very mana intensive. And we're in a Grixis Spellslinger deck. Like, we're not attacking. You think we're attacking to get that raid trigger? No. Ever. Never. Never. Because we'll die if we do. I mean, at most, we're blocking them with our 1/3 Death Toucher, but we're not attacking. Like, this deck's got Phoenixes in it. Like, what are we doing here, right? All the token generators cost like 8 mana. I mean, like, why are we paying 7 mana for a 5/5 and pitching lands, right? So I was like, this thing needs a touch, needs a little streamlining, needs a little pimping of the Precon. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we did. All right. So just some quick stats for you before we get going. The deck does contain 37 lands, which is very, very high. It has about 8 lands that come into play tapped. So it's actually pretty low for these Precons because a lot of times it's anywhere like upwards to half. So they have done a lot to kind of improve the mana base, but it's still pretty shoddy. They have added, like, it comes with a Izzet Signet, Dimir Signet, Arcane Signet, Rakdos Signet, a Soul Ring, and a Felware Stone. That's way better than... So the deck actually has some, like, pretty solid, like, nuts and bolts to get you going. So here's what I did. I took the $40, and this is what we did with the deck. So I'm going to go over the deck in the finished product, and I'll kind of circle back and talk about some of the ones that I kind of missed going over the first time. Pretty much I took every creature out of the deck except for Kess, Goblin Electromancer, and Camellia. Camellia is just like a way to generate some mana. When she dies, I get a instant or sorcery back. But the big ones is I put in Docent of Perfection. So what Docent of Perfection does is every time you cast an instant or sorcery, it makes a 1/1. Now, I understand that doesn't trigger. You can't use that for the casualty. But here's the thing. You get 3 wizards, and it flips. And now, every instant or sorcery you cast makes a 3/3, a 3/2 flyer. So 1, it can help generate a board to threaten your opponent's lives, and it also allows you to trigger casualty every turn Sure, it's 5 mana, it's not the best. There's actually a couple of better ones out there, but they've spiked to over $10. So I needed to stick with some of the ones that were a little bit cheaper. But what's nice is every time I cast a spell, I can sack the one that I have on board, and it makes a new one to replace it. So I'm copying all of my spells once this thing gets online. The next big one I added was Talaran. Talaran's a 4 mana version. It makes a 2/2 Drake every time you cast under a sorcery. So we just pay the 4, get Talaran on board, and just cast one, make the token, and then every other one we make after that we can copy. The other thing we want to do is we want to get some mana production going. So Stormkiln Artist, not only does it make a treasure on cast, it makes a treasure on copy. So if we get like Talaran and the Stormkiln Artist in play and get them online, we can sack the token from the previous cast to copy it. Now we're getting 2 treasures, and we're getting another 2/2 Drake. So it kind of keeps fueling it, and then we're getting doubling up on our copies of our spells. We're also running Archmage Emeritus as a way to kind of help keep our hands filled. Again, it's a little clunky because it's 4 mana, but that's not kind of the worst. I mean, it's an improvement over where we started. So at least now this deck, at least as far as the creature package is concerned, has a plan, and the plan is pretty reasonable and kind of stick to it. I also added our Archaeomancer because it's a good way to buy back instances of sorceries that are in our yard, much like Camellia is, except for with the Archaeomancer, we can just cast a bounce spell or something and reset it. I did keep in the Electromancer because it's a cost reducer. I like Kess because, again, it gives us some recursion. And then the last creature I added was a Simian Spirit Guide, just because it's 30 cents, and it literally reads discard a card, make 1 red mana. And that will help us get our commander out faster. Essentially, I retooled the entire creature package. I took out most of the ones that were in the list, kind of moving down to sorceries. I did keep in some of the things. It actually had a pretty nice cantrip suite with Ponder, Preordain. It had Deep Analysis. It had Drown in the Dreams. It even had a Feed the Swarm. So if you noticed up here in the creatures, I did add a Dualcaster Mage. So I did Twin Flame, and I did Heat Shimmer. And what that does is if I have any creature on board, I just cast the Heat Shimmer, targeting that creature, and then I flash in the Dualcaster Mage. And then I can make infinite 2/2 Dualcaster Mages and win with combat. That will also trigger, let's say I'm in post-combat for some reason, that will trigger the Archmage Emeritus, that will trigger the Stormkiln Artist, which will allow me to just dig through my, I can make it happen as many times as I want. So that'll allow me to dig through. I did add a light reanimator package in the form of Unearth and Persist to allow me to, like, unmarked grave the Dualcaster Mage and then buy it back, or pitch like Stormkiln Artist and buy it back, or the Archaeomancer and buy it back. It's kind of like just having like a clean 2-card win con that will end the game. And then in the interim, we've added like Final Party, which executes the same plan. I added Pyroclasm. I added a couple of tutors in the form of Profane Tutor. This one's spicy. Demonic Bargain. It's 15 cents, and it's a demonic bargain, all right, because you will exile 13 cards before you tutor. But the thing is that if you're winning the game, it doesn't matter how many cards you exile, as long as you're not exiling the cards you need. So the basic idea with the deck, where I'm at, is that I want to stick Anhelo down pretty fast. I want to get one of my 2 token generators as quickly as possible on board. Obviously, this is like a Precon with 220s thrown at it, so while it will be more focused, it will not be like fully optimized or fully streamlined.
Mm-hmm.
And then use that to start recurring double tutoring, because I can sack the tokens, the Tolerant token or the Docent token, to assemble a win con. And then use my removal and my interaction suite to buy me time. Also, to kind of help get me there, I can just play my commander, play like Docent or Tolerant, and just start cantripping with like my Ponders, my Preordains, Frantic Search, to just start generating value. I'm running step through because most of the creatures I put in, Toleran's a wizard, Emeritus is a wizard, Archaeomancer is a wizard, Dualcaster Mage is a wizard, Kess and the Electromancer are all wizards. Unfortunately, Camellia is a rogue, and unfortunately, the Stormkill Artist is a dwarf. Still, like it gets. So what I did was I just started to kind of build and layer more synergy to help get that commander to really just start to shine. You know what I mean?
Honestly, step through is super big brain because I didn't even realize that it had wizard cycling too.
Yeah,
It's super big brain.
yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing that's nice. So here's a little trick. It's not infinite, but it is. It's infinite. Is you can play step through, target your your Archaeomancer, and then one other creature on board. Bounce your Archaeomancer back to your hand, replay it to get your step through back, and do it again. So it kind of acts like a runaway together, where you bounce your Archaeomancer and then one other creature on board to kind of help accrue value. Now again,
that could definitely be used with Dockside Distortionist if you like. That's a good upgrade.
Yeah. I mean, that's more than double what we put in. But yes, that would be a great upgrade. I did also solve the equation. I did add Peer in the Abyss as well, just to kind of help give us some big ways to find what we need. And then down in the instance, I am a little light on instance, and I understand that the best way to really play this deck is to be able to like trigger on Cornholio. It's an old deep Beavis and Butthead cut, I know. Multiple, like on everybody's turn. I just found it to be a little difficult to do reliably. I kept getting, when I was goldfishing it, I was getting gated by mana because I don't have an infinite mana, a way to make infinite mana really, not for the price point that I had. So what I wound up doing was I wound up going with a little more sorcery speed stuff. And then all of my instants is mostly interaction, like Resculpt, Cathartic Pyre, Abrade. There are some cantrips like Dig Through Time and a little chat, Terminate. But then I also added like Frantic Search was in the deck. Unexpected Windfall. I added Vampiric Rites, Big Score, Mana Leak, Spell Pierce, Stern Dismissal. Like that's the thing that's nice about these. Any of the bounce spells in this deck, if you have like a Tolerand on board or the Docent on board, you can just kind of create a soft lock with the Archaeomancer by bouncing it back to your hand because you have two copies essentially. So you have your original that targets something, and then you have the copy off of the casualty trigger, and then you can bounce the Archaeomancer back to your hand and then just keep buying it back over and over again. And that kind of gives you a little engine, even if it is a little clunky. But the idea with this is that you're basically going to be playing this essentially against similar power level decks. So those types of grindy engines are pretty good. Essentially what we're doing is we're just kind of taking it and starting the streamlining process. I did also add a Dark Ritual and then an Alchemist Retrieval because it's 1 mana to bounce my thing and then 2 mana to bounce somebody else's stuff. And then once we get down into the artifacts, I did add Charcoal Diamond, Sky Diamond. I also added a Prismatic Lens, and I also added a Ever-Flowing Chalice. I just wanted a couple more rocks that were 2 CMC or less, even if they're not the strongest. I just wanted things that kind of help work. I did add a Wishclaw Talisman because for $3, you're not going to get a better tutor, to be honest.
Honestly.
Yeah. Now here's a couple of things of note that I did leave in the deck. I left in the Twinning Staff because being able to copy getting an additional casualty trigger is nice. So, I mean, an additional copy of the spell off the casualty trigger is nice. It also can copy a spell if I wanted to, but I don't really see myself doing that. But just being able to sack the 2/2 and then get 3 versions of that spell is really nice. Like triple Pondering for 1 blue and then sack a 2/2.
It's pretty good value for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did also leave in Cryptic Pursuit. It's our 3rd copy of the Talleyrand effect, essentially. because every time you cast an instant or sorcery, it'll manifest the top of your library, which makes it a 2/2. And then when you sack it to the casualty trigger, whenever a face down creature you control dies, exile it, and if it's an instant or sorcery, you may cast it until your next turn. So what it does is that allows us manifest all of these big chunky instants and sorceries off top of our library, and then when they get to the graveyard, now we can just cast them. Lastly, I did also leave in double vision because it's just another way to get an additional copy of any spell. So I felt that it kind of fit with the theme, even if it's not the strongest version of that effect, it just kind of covers what I want. And then lastly, down in the mana base, I didn't do too much. I took out all of the ETB tapped lands. I don't know. I think I took out like 10 lands. Well, you know what? I'll go to the next. When I go to the next slide, it'll go over everything I had. With the beginning precon, we had an average mana value of 3.65. That's a lot. When I got done with it, we dropped it by a whole point. So it's 2.65 now. And that's also cutting lands because we went from 37 lands to 33. So we put more action in the deck and lowered the curve that drastically for $40. So this deck will punch a lot harder than it will out of the box. And $40, well, isn't like, insignificant.
It's a good upgrade path because like $40 is like, because the box itself cost the $40, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So you get the box and you're like, well, I played with it for a few weeks. I kind of want to make it a little bit better. Put in the same amount that you put in the box to begin with, and now you have a deck that's 2 or 3 times better than it used to be, with only spending $40 additional dollars.
Right. Instead of buying a precon, now you have a precon that works.
Yeah.
You also have a bunch of like extra cards to throw into your build binder. I mean, I took out 44 cards out of this deck. So I did a little bit under $1 a card. And
that another thing is that it's now so much smoother, right? Because
it's a lot smoother.
The problem with most precons is that they're great for newer players, but they're bad for people who want to play them and just play them, right?
Yeah.
And so like they end up getting in the position that you're in now. It's like you get it, you realize it's super duper clunky, and you want to make it better. Well, here you are.
Exactly. Yeah. So the lands we took out were, oh no, I did wind up adding both of the panoramas. So let's go to our last slide and let's wrap up and get out of here. So on the last page, here's every upgrade that I did. I understand that on Moxfield it's calculating it at $40.56. When I bought these cards, like literally a week ago, it was $38.70. So something went up a little bit. So we took out like 8 lands. We added back in like 3, 4, a couple of rocks, and then we just added a bunch of interaction. And we added some tutors. And then we gave it like a very clean win con that we can dig to. And then it's 2 cards. It's only 5 or 6 mana to execute, and it will win the game. So if we wind up playing this like at an F&M and we wind up playing against more tuned decks, we have a chance. Because we're not just trying to drop 8 drops all day long. Like we can actually like start doing stuff. Anything you want to add? Like any questions you have about the list, kind of looking it over, anything you think I might have left out?
No, I mean, the only thing I'd say that you left out is that Peer into the Abyss. You didn't really go over it, but even then, it's like pretty self-explanatory.
So the idea with Peer is that we're running a couple of rituals. Well, actually, I'm sorry, we're only running 1 ritual, but we've added a bunch of rocks, and we can play Peer like in the mid game off of copying one of our rituals. Like if we play Dark Ritual, sack a 2/2, we now have 6 black. We only need to make 1 more black mana. Or 1 more mana to pay for Peer into the Abyss. Then we draw half our library. Even if we don't win there, we should just be able to discard down to 7, get back to us, hold everybody off, and win from there.
Yeah, because that discarding down to 7 allows you to sculpt your hand, and if you have half your library, you're guaranteed to have at least a lot of interaction.
At least a lot of interaction, and then on our next turn, hopefully we have at least enough,
Oh,
at least something to go get what we need, like
like
to
a
get
win
our way.
con, yeah.
The other thing that's nice is that they're while most of the instants aren't like while the deck isn't overly leveraged on instants, about 1 in 5 cards is an instant, and you can use, and all of those cards are interaction and cantripping. So they either deal with problems or they help you find your answers.
Yep.
And you can start generating a lot of value off of it, because once you get your engine online, start sacking those 2/2s on your opponent's turns, and you start drawing 4, making 4 treasure.
Yeah,
It
it's definitely a lot of value,
it'll add up
which
fast.
goes a lot more, like it goes a lot longer than most precons do.
Now the one thing is that like I basically this deck went from no plan to about a turn 8 plan. So it's probably like even with the upgrades, it's probably only about a 5.5,
Yeah.
maybe a 6, but I think that might be a little
Yeah.
stretch. With that, I think we should get skedaddling. I probably kept you long enough. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them down below. The link to the deck list, the beginning, the upgraded one will be in the description, as well as links to the website. If you want to support us, you can check out our Patreon down below as well. And please hit that like, share, and subscribe. And everybody have a good night.
Bye.